Hello everybody and welcome to the FM Scout YouTube channel, where today we will be going through how to set up your training for FM19. Now the first way I want to show you is this. You go on to staff, you go on to responsibilities, and you take the responsibility off yourself and you give it to the assistant manager. Now that's the key point I want to make here. If you are not going to go in depth with training, or you're not going to get involved with it too much, make sure your assistant manager is in charge of it. If you just leave it to carry on, nothing will be changed, nothing will change from the default settings. So at the very least, if you get your assistant manager involved, they will be able to tailor your training to the current workload you need, the matches that are coming up, and things like that. And just on that note, you want to have a look at your assistant manager's capabilities to be able to run the training. So as you can see here, the starting assistant manager for Sunderland is not the ideal person to be taking over the training responsibilities. Not only is his coaching stats quite poor, his man management, his judging ability is quite poor. You want someone who sort of fits the philosophy that you want to be approaching. So you've got to look at the preferred formation, the preferred playing style. If you're not going to do training and you're going to give it to your assistant manager, please take a look at how your assistant manager does things, what his stats are like, and that will really help you get the most out of training. Now in terms of setting up training yourself, I would highly recommend you do the training induction that Football Manager offers. Now if you've already skipped that or have went through it and didn't quite understand it, click on the question mark on the top right hand corner, click on training induction, click restart and go through it again. Now the first thing it asks you to go through is your tactics. Now in terms of setting up a tactic on Football Manager, me personally, this is what I do. I only set up one primary tactic initially. Make sure your team is then fully competent in that tactic before you add another one. That's just how I've found that you can get your tactic embedded into the team before your first game of the season, whereas if you slap 2 or 3 tactics in straight away, it may take quite a while for you to get used to the tactic that you primarily want to use. In terms of the initial screen that happens on training, you of course see the first week of the training schedule that has been prepared for you. And as you can see on this week, it is the pre-season normal early on, which I'll take a look at in the schedules just in a minute. Training happiness, this will of course show how your players are reacting to what training you have put on for them and how they're performing generally is next to it. And as you can see here, Lee Cattermuller's loving life. Medical centre is something you do want to keep an eye on when you're doing your training. As you can see, you get a bit more of a overview when you click on the medical centre itself, but you have to have a look to see the high injury risks and whether that you should change your training based on that. And something else to take a key eye on is the overall average training rating. If this is too low, this might mean you've either got players who don't respond very well to training, or your training that you've got is not matching up well with the players you have. So the next tab is your calendar tab. Now as you can see, these are greyed out because the time's already started. June 25th, this training week is already happening. So I've clicked forward to July that I've used in the top left. And as you can see here, now I can start changing things. Football Manager provides you with a set list of schedules that you can choose from. And I would highly recommend you use these early on at the very least before you start looking into creating your own schedules. You want to get a feel for how the training works, what responds well and what doesn't. So this is going to be our second week of pre-season training that we're looking at. We do have one match in here, and based on a lot of our players, a lot of our key players as well, being high on the injury risk, for next week I'm going to go on to pre-season, tactical, and that's early. And as you can see here, these change the little columns on the side here. Injury risk, condition, fatigue, sharpness, team cohesion and happiness based on which one you pick. So as you can see, if I pick something like heavy early, we're at a high risk of injury, high risk of poor condition and poor fatigue. Sharpness would improve, team cohesion would improve and happiness will be okay as well. But it's not the sort of thing that you want to be applying this early in pre-season. So I think my best option to avoid injury risks and improve the condition enough, it looks like light mid might be the key thing to use here in terms of your early pre-season. And of course, as you go further on down the list, I would increase the intensity as the season draws closer, then maybe drop the intensity just as your first game's approaching to ensure you're not having injuries. Now of course all of this is a balance between trying to get the right mix of improving attributes, getting the tactics familiar with the players, maybe repositioning players, but also you've got to bear in mind the injury risk and the conditioning risk that will fall on you. So I would maybe at the end of every month look at the next month, how you want to set up, who you're going to be playing in that week, because that might be a key thing to think about. So we'll take August here, for example. Our first game in the league is going to be against Charlton Athletic. Now for me, it's been set up quite nicely already. Pre-season, tactical, late. So just before the game against Charlton Athletic, we're going to be working a lot on the Friday on match tactics. And on this Thursday beforehand, I've noticed that they've got 2 rest periods in each session. So there's 3 sessions every day. And on this Thursday, they're going to be doing overall team training in the morning. And I've changed it so they're doing attack and free kicks in the second session. One thing I've noticed on FM is free kicks, and particularly set pieces in general. They work quite well in this year's game. So I could even change this to attacking corners and get them involved in that. Now, when this week comes up, it might be a bit too much for the players. There might be too much going on, and I might have to review and remove a session or add a lighter session in somewhere else. So maybe on the Wednesday I remove one of these. It's a pretty full day. Physical session in the morning, outfield session in the middle, and team bonding session on the last bit of the session. So I might want to remove one of them if I find the fatigue/injury risk is too high. And again, you can plan this throughout the whole season. I wouldn't recommend doing it throughout the whole season. I would recommend at the end of every month having a look just to see what's been set up already and whether you would want any changes or not. And we have discussed the schedules. These are all the set schedules that you can pick. Tactical style is one that I would very recommend using quite a lot, particularly in pre-season, because you want to get your team used to whatever preset you've decided to select. Now, of course, you might have gone completely off track and changed that whole thing altogether, but if you're sticking close to the preset, I would recommend, like, say I was using Geogym Press, I would want to see that being part of the training session quite frequently, so my team will get used to that system. Maybe in a future video I will talk about creating your own schedules to get the most out of your players. Unfortunately, I haven't messed about with this too much myself. I find the presets that Football Manager makes available are okay for what you need, and I think that it's best to stick to them, at least early on, whilst you're getting used to the new training system. Now, in terms of your units, this is basically selecting where each player will be performing their training. So your attacking unit, you want your wingers, you want your strikers, you want your attacking midfielders. And your defensive unit, you want defensive midfielders, centre-halves, wing-backs potentially. But you might also want your wing-backs in the attacking unit. It all depends on the system that you're trying to implement. So if you're playing with attacking wing-backs, I would say get them in the attacking unit. If your central midfielders are more defensive, you want them, let's say for instance you want them to be a ball-winning midfielder, I would say get them in your defensive unit. And one other thing that I really want to mention is that you can get your youth or reserve team players to train with the first team without having them in the first team squad. So for Sunderland, one of their players that has quite a bit of potential is Maximilian Stryjek. I want him in the goalkeeping unit with the first team, training with the first team, with the hope that he will improve enough to get into the first team proper. So I would suggest any player with high potential in your under 18s, under 23s or whatever, you get them involved in first team training, because to me it seems like it might be something that would benefit them greatly. Now, in terms of mentoring, it has replaced tutoring from Football Manager 2018, and this one you can set up multiple people in the same group. So for this one that I've asked my assistant manager to quickly assign, Aidan McGeady is the highly influential player, 15 determination, a resolute personality. It's the sort of thing that you want to be getting into your younger players. So as you can see here, this young lad in the under 23s, he's only a balanced personality with low determination. Jerome Sinclair, a young lad, 20 determination, I would maybe remove him from the mentoring group. And Joshua Meyer, 14 determination, balanced personality. You want Aidan McGeady to be able to influence these young players in the same way tutoring did last year. Now, unfortunately, they do have to be, I'm not sure if they have to be in the same squad or whether you can fit the under 23s in, but I don't think you can have your under 18 players being tutored by first team members unless they're in the same squad. The individual training screen has changed as well. So we'll take one example here. Joshua Meyer, he's a young striker at Sunderland who I want to be a pressing forward. So I obviously, as I would on previous years, assign his position, role and duty as pressing forward. In terms of his additional thing I want to improve, it's going to be quickness, so that's going to affect his speed and acceleration and his agility. An intensity level, whilst we're still in pre-season, I'm going to go half intensity. That just reduces the workload that will be on him. So individual training hasn't changed all that much. Some of the selections have changed in terms of additional focuses. I think they've maybe removed some of the more specific things. Like, yeah, you kind of just pick to improve Donald Love's tackling, for instance. Maybe defensive positioning would help with that. So yeah, some slight changes to the individual training from last year. Now this is a big one for me, rest. This one, if you don't set up any others, I would really recommend you set up this one. If you've got players on less than 59% conditioning, I would say they do no pitch or gym work. This is just to reduce the need of injuries and little niggles that can definitely form if they are on the training pitch. For 60 to 69, I would recommend half intensity. For 70 and 79, I would say maybe... this one, there's a flip a coin. I would say either half intensity or normal intensity. I'm going to stick it with normal intensity right now. I'm going to do the same for 80 to 89% conditioning. I'm going to double the intensity for players above 90% conditioning. Now again, this is all just the balancing act between managing risk of injury and improving attributes and positioning. In terms of your coaching, this is all changed. This screen is completely new. And it's just meant to give you a quick overview of how your coaches, what they're assigned to and how they're doing, what star rating they are, what the workload's like. Just the same thing, but in a different way that we had last year. But when you want to edit the coach assignments, just click on the top right hand corner and this brings you to a more familiar screen. And there is different coaching responsibilities now: defending tactical and technical, attacking tactical and technical, possession tactical and technical, fitness, strength and quickness, which I think was strength and... I can't even remember what it was last year now, it's already gone from my head. Aerobic, I think. And one of the goalkeeping knocks has been took out as well. It's just shot stopping and handling now. So training has changed a lot, and as the year goes on, we're going to learn a lot more about it and what is effective. But for me, I would say stick with the defaults, have a tinker with things, don't change them too much, and just figure things out as you go along. Once you're 2 or 3 years into a save, I think you'll have a really good understanding of what works, what doesn't, and how to best manage your squad to keep them in conditioning, improving, and low risk of injuries. Listen, if you've enjoyed today's video, there's a link to my channel in the description where I'm doing the Sir Alex Ferguson Challenge with West Ham. If that's something you're interested in, go and check it out. Make sure you subscribe to the FM Scout YouTube channel for more content like this. Like the video, and yeah, until next time, take it easy.